All right. Great. So it looks like 64% of us say quite a bit, that you all have worked with equity quite a bit. 21% some, 14% just a little, and great that no one is brand new to this, and that equity is being talked about in all of your colleges. That's terrific. Okay. All right, so everyone has a copy of their syllabus and a link that they've got the link to the Google Doc there. So I'm going to begin by sharing my screen. And I have a few slides on something that I didn't give you a link to, and then we'll go to the Google Doc. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is equity itself, right? So this session is a little bit of a workshop-y kind of session on equity in our syllabi, but of course, we want to talk about what equity is, and equity in our syllabi can extend to a lot of other things, right? It can extend to things like curriculum. It can extend to things like, how well students feel like they belong right away in your course. So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about. So I'd like to go through this image, and I'm wondering if anybody has worked with this image before. Would anyone like to talk about the differences between, say, equality and equity? And if you raise your hand, let's see, I will be able to see you. Otherwise, you could just unmute. Would anybody like to give their sort of definition, or what's the difference between equality and equity?
Yeah, in our program, we describe it as the difference between giving people the same and giving people what they need.
I love that. Very simple, right? So the key, I think, about this image is the tree is bending to the left. So we've got in the first one, inequality, unequal access to opportunities. The tree is bending. There's more fruit on the left side. So this student on the left is, the recipient of the resources or the opportunities, just because that's the way the tree grew, right? And then equality would be, having sort of the same for everyone. Which is represented here by the ladders, which are the same height, right? So you give everybody the same tools, you give everybody the same opportunities, but still there are differences in how people can access, utilize, or work with those resources. So the key here is to move from an equality mindset to an equity mindset. In that equity, like Nancy said, is to provide people with the resources that they need to thrive and succeed. In this case, because the tree is bent to the left, and we could say this is, let's say structural racism, white supremacy, this could be school to prison pipeline, or a lot of other things that maybe aren't so, such enormous social issues, even minor things, individual opportunities for students as they, as they grow and they go to school. But in this case, what we needed to do in order to give them the same opportunities was to customize the ladder, right? Give them a higher ladder so that they could reach the fruit. But you see in this case, there's still more fruit on the left side. So the system hasn't fixed itself, right? So then our last image here with justice, we fix the system to offer equal access to both tools and opportunities. We straighten the tree. Now there's fruit all over the tree and everyone gets what they need with the same amount of resources, right? We're not there yet. So this is a working definition of equity that we use in my college, in San Diego Miramar College. And it comes from a great book called From Equity Talk to Equity Walk. And Estela Ben-Simon is one of the sort of leading writers and thinkers, researchers in terms of equity. And this book speaks, I think, mostly to maybe administrators and deans and student services, but also has a lot to say for educators. And so the definition that we're using is that equity prioritizes the creation of support systems, structures, and opportunities for minoritized students to have equal outcomes and participation in educational programs that can close the achievement gaps in student success and completion, right? So it's not equality. And a lot of my colleagues often don't understand the difference. They use the term equity when what they really mean is equality. But equity is something very specific, right? So just to introduce the idea of looking at our syllabi through an equity lens, these are 3 copies of my syllabi over the past several years. So the one on the left, the Word doc, is the syllabus that I have been using for, let's say, 10 years, right? And I thought it was cute, you know, like there's a little slow loris, like it's cute, it's easy to read, it's clear. And then I started to, to look at it through an equity lens, which is what we're going to do with your syllabus today. And I realized that, first of all, I'm not there at all. Like students reading this, they don't even see a person there. It didn't feel welcoming. It felt very exclusive using language, especially in bioanth, which we've now changed the title. But in bioanth, you're talking about, natural selection and Neanderthals in the first, the first page or 2. Students are going to be like, I don't understand, Hardy Weinberg, like, well, I don't, this doesn't feel like something that I might not be able to do this. So one of the things that I tried was what's called a visual syllabus. And I took the first 2 pages of my syllabus and I used Canva, which is a great web-based program. You don't need an app for it. And they have a free version. And Canva and also Adobe Spark are very easy to use to create graphics. And like flyers and other things like that. Yes, a bush baby would have been cuter. Sorry, I like the slow loris. And so all of a sudden, I did this just for the first 2 pages, and I felt all of a sudden like, wow, I might like to take this course. Like this looks fun. It looks welcoming. I do realize, however, that a syllabus has to have a lot of information in it, right, for it to be official. And so I only did this with the first 2 pages. And then I created like a folder for the rest of the information that students could click on individually if they wanted other information. And this is, I'm talking about, my virtual courses, which I've been teaching for the past year. And then the other thing that I did was to create what's called a liquid syllabus. And I'll show you some more examples of this. And this is on a Google site. You can use different programs, but Google is the easiest. And the liquid syllabus is one that will work well on a phone. And we know that community college students, the majority of community college students actually, more than 50% use their phones for at least part of the time to go to school and to do their assignments. It's an anti-racist practice to create materials for our classes that are easily accessible by phone because it is, again, meeting students where they are. So I'll give you some more examples of the liquid syllabus in a minute. All right. Now I'm going to go to the Google Doc. And I see a whole bunch of you there with your funny little animal icons. And I'm going to start with this this image, which is similar to the the image I showed before, right? For a fair selection, everyone has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree, right? So can someone tell me, how does this apply to our students? Who are the goldfish? Who are the seals? What are we expecting students to do when we ask them all to take the same exam in the same time period, with the same limitations? Carlene.
Well, from an equity perspective, certainly we are expecting students who may have a disability to, climb that tree, even though perhaps they are not poorly equipped, unable. It's a hurdle.
Absolutely. Jen?
I can't, there, I unmuted myself. And I'd also add that you're putting more of an impact, you're putting more importance on mechanics rather than content. If you have exactly the same exam, the learning outcome, to use that sort of terminology, is, can you take an exam? By the end of this class, you'll be able to effectively take an exam. Not by the end of this class, you will have an understanding about human evolution.
Right, that's a great way to put it. Karen.
Well, and I think of this in terms of my own children, because I have way too many of those anyway. But you're not giving them what they need. I mean, if one kid is into soccer, then that's great. You give them a soccer ball. If another child wants nothing to do with soccer and wants to, be a mad scientist or whatever, then you get them the science kit. If we get everybody the same thing, they're not getting what they need, and they're also not going to be engaged.
Absolutely. So there's nothing to say here that, I guess it's a monkey with a tail who looks like a chimp. Why do they always do this? But the monkey, isn't inherently better than the elephant or the goldfish. They're not inherently smarter. They're not, they're just more equipped, right, to use someone's words. Maybe they had special training as they grew up. Maybe their monkey parents were able to send them to special monkey climbing schools that the seal didn't get to go to, right? All kinds of things that we can think of, but it doesn't mean that that any of the other equipped animals or students are less than, right? Okay, so we're going old school. I'm scrolling. I've given you the link to this because I'd really like you to have a copy and be able to access it at any time. There are a lot of resources here that I want to make sure that you have access to. So we're going to look at a little bit of inquiry about our syllabus, examples, considerations for how to reimagine, and then resources. All right, so for the first one, please look at your syllabus. And what I'd like you to do is answer these questions. So if you have a copy of it, you'll be able to see all of the questions. There are 5. Please consider the questions, especially from, let's say, a first generation student or a student who's had educational trauma, right? So many of our students come to us with educational trauma, and there's a link there to some research about educational trauma. You know, so many of our students have trauma associated with, you know, with assessments, with just being in a classroom, right? With instructors. So for all of these, I want you to take a look at your syllabus, and I'm going to actually give you about 5 minutes to do this because I'd really like us to engage. So the first impressions, what are the first messages students might receive from this document, right? Take a look at your whole syllabus. How does it make you feel, especially from the perspective of a student? What's the tone? How would you describe the tone? Is it respectful, encouraging, supportive? What about resources? Does it convey a willingness to help students by providing contact information and resources? How might one student group benefit from this document over another? Could some of the policies that appear neutral or equal actually be inequitable and even potentially triggering for some students? And then lastly, consider how much of your syllabus was written in this way because that's the way you learned in school. And this is exactly how I wrote my syllabus because I didn't know any better. Were you ever excited by a syllabus? What would your syllabus look like if you had the time to start over? And Karen, did you have another question? Your hand is still up. Gotcha. Okay, so I'm going to give you about 4 more minutes to look through your syllabus and work through this.
Do you want us to answer the questions on the Google Doc or just for
You don't
ourselves?
need to answer on the Google Doc. You can just go through it on your own. Yeah, you can write notes for yourself if you like. one more minute. All right. What did you learn? Go ahead and put your hands up if you'd like. I'd love to hear what you found out about your own syllabus. I learned a lot from my own syllabus the first time I looked at it. Carlene.
Okay.
I'm never shy to go first.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah. So, yeah, because this is a great exercise.
Oh, good.
So, a couple of things. Yeah, I've worked really hard on trying to get my syllabi to look to be more approachable, so that it's mixed, right? So I think my syllabus looks fun, and I have tried to make it interesting to students. But I also know that just because I am a mommy, that I have some real stern language, particularly regarding course policies, and so it's back and forth, right? So yeah, it does come off in parts as like, do this or you shall not pass. So.
Great, thank you, Carlene. Jen?
I'd say looking at mine and like Colleen, I've put some effort into this in the past, but I also feel somewhat stymied by college requirements of what needs to be on the first page. When I look at my syllabus, and I don't know if students see this, but I see a really clear distinction between the parts that, I wrote, which I have tried really hard to make engaging, encouraging, and supportive, and the blurbs that you're required to put on the syllabus because the college wrote them, and they're legalistic and gross, and I hate them. And so there's sort of balance for me. So yeah, I don't really know what to do about that. How do you put yourself into the syllabus when you are required to include these standoffish, legalistic sounding blurbs with particular wording?
Absolutely. Have you, or would you be able to put them at the end? I moved all my learning objectives to the end because I didn't want to scare the students off right away. And I said, hey, if you've made it all this far, good for you. This is going to sound like nonsense to you right now, but I promise that you'll understand it by the end of the semester. Is it possible to move some of that stuff?
We're actually required to have the course description, the catalog course description, which I didn't write and is stupid, but I do have the power to rewrite it. I just haven't had a chance to do so. The course outcomes and the core learning objectives are all required to be on the front page. So I've tried to make the front page look pretty, but the words are good. And then the words start being good on the second page.
Well, it sounds like you don't have a lot of control, right? But you're doing your best. Karen?
It helps if I unmute, sorry. We decided a while ago, and as a department now, we do this just across the board. All of those legal statements that the college requires you to do that can make your syllabus go from 2 pages to 20 are in a folder, and they're online. And we reference that in the syllabus that we give to students, but they're not there. Now, we may raise some of them as points, when we're doing our syllabus, but they aren't all just right there. We just say, you need to go and look here. This is where all those statements are, etc. And one of the things I've done for a long time is tried to make my syllabus more conversational, so, and you're talking about learning objectives, and like, especially if I'm in class and we're going over it, I always throw one in there like able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. No, wait, that's another class. Just something to show them that I understand that it sounds a little, I don't know, maybe concerning the first day. And I especially like in biological anth when I'm in the classroom, because I have all these skull casts sitting around, right? And I say, believe it or not, by the end of this term, you'll be able to look at these guys and tell me what their names are. And they're all like, oh yeah, right. And I said, no, you believe me, you will. So, I think as long, it's not just whether the terms are there or not, but as you have your one point about the tone, I am always in the syllabus and elsewhere saying, I know you can do this. We can work on this together, that kind of thing, rather than, oh boy, I hope you can make this. We got lots of long Latin names. We got all sorts of crap we're going to throw at you. It's more the idea that, hey, we can get through this. As a class, we'll make it.
That's great. Thank you, Karen, for sharing those ideas. So of course we could talk, I'm sure, for a while about this, but I'd like to give you some more tools. And this is the next one. So this is for you to just sort of rank your syllabus to see, which one of these do you feel you need to work on a little bit. On a scale from 1 to 5, how well do you think your syllabus conveys the message of a welcoming academic environment? Has a caring and encouraging tone that encourages students of any demographic or characteristic to participate in the course, right? And that's hard because we have such a wide range of students from so many different backgrounds and current life experiences and abilities and gender and sexualities, right? So there's all kinds of things that we want to try to think about with all of our language, right? But especially right off the bat, because this is often the first thing they see, right? And it can just shut people down right away, which is unfortunate. Number 3 validates that all students have the potential to successfully complete the course and articulates the message that the instructor will play an active role in the student's success in the course by providing feedback, checking in, and providing opportunities for discussion. That was one that I did not have in mind, that the instructor will play. I didn't see myself anywhere in there. And anyone who knows me, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. I love to chat. I love to, to connect with people and to connect with my students. And this syllabus just was like, not me at all. And I thought, wow, they are getting a really skewed picture of how my course will be. And then I had to think about my course, right? Like the syllabus is one thing, but then I had to think about my course as well. So. Okay, so we'll leave that for now. That's for you. This is another resource by Mayra Cruz from the California Community Colleges Academic Senate. There's a link there to an equity-centered syllabus journey. And they suggest that you sort of get together with other faculty and have a syllabus review and maybe use these protocols or this protocol to look at your syllabus and talk about it with your colleagues. All right. I wanted to show some examples of equity-minded syllabi. So this first one is, it's not extremely colorful, but some of the things that look different about this syllabus that seem more interesting, more welcoming, more explanatory is, that it's very easily read, right? It's compartmentalized. It's got icons and images. This person also wanted to more clearly explain their policies, and so created a section just for that, for explaining policies in a very clear way to students. Then there's ones like this, which I really love. This is a
Yeah,
visual.
I've seen that one.
You've seen that one? Yeah, this one is, it's on the internet, it's out there. If you wanted to look at the, this is the person's, I think, blog who wrote it. And she talks about how she came to write this, this syllabus. So it looks more like a newsletter, right? I mean, I think it's gorgeous. When I redid mine, it didn't work for me to put it into this kind of, sorry, I'm gonna mute. Okay, perfect. So it didn't work for me to put it into this, this kind of format, but I think it's great. And I think it's very visually appealing, and it's something that is immediately identifiable to students. It looks less like a contract, which is scary, right? We often say like, oh, your syllabus, I used to say this all the time, your syllabus is your contract. Like, when was the last time a contract was exciting? Like, why do we want to call it a contract? Contracts are scary. Contracts lead to punishment when they're broken, right? So it may be a contract, but can we at least put it into a format that doesn't make it feel so much like a contract, and work on the language so that it's less contractual and more, I don't know, collaborative. This is another one that I really love. This is a visual syllabus. Again, you have to be pretty talented, or at least, look for some great images. This is from, I think, Napoleon Dynamite, if anyone knows, but Neri, do you know?
No, but is there a person in the world called Napoleon Dynamite? That's awesome.
It's a movie.
Oh.
Yeah,
well.
it's a movie. And so this person, used characters, animated them, or pulled animated characters off the internet. And this for me is a little hard to read, just frankly, but it's because of the font, I think. But it's certainly more exciting, and it shows me this person really cares what students think about their class. I have 2 college-age daughters, and I get feedback from them all the time about how they think, whether they think teachers care about them or not. And that makes a huge difference to them. If in the first week of class, they feel that a teacher doesn't care that they're there or what they're doing, they just check out, completely emotionally check out, and they'll just do the minimum amount of work. And my students are kids of a professor. Like, think about kids of people who are not professors, right? We've been talking about academics ever since they were born, basically, and they're still full of anxiety, about not getting a syllabus before the first day, about emailing a professor, right? So many things that cause them so much anxiety, and these are the kids of a professor, all right. So here's another one, maybe not quite as exciting, but still, very welcoming, in terms of, you've got, kind of a fun picture of the professor. You've got a meme in there. You've got the fact that this is a safe zone. a sample email, which reduces the anxiety for students. So there's a lot of good little bits in there. This is another visual syllabus that uses a scuba diving metaphor. Again, you have to be a pretty skilled graphic designer. You can see the whole thing if you pull it up on your own version of the Google Doc. But this person said, since my writing class factored participation as a significant portion of student grades, a visual metaphor helped to reinforce the larger outcomes. So it's scuba diving. And so what I like about these kinds of syllabi is that the professor is recognizing the true fact that your students are there for different reasons, right? I don't have a lot of anthro majors. And I'm sure a lot of us, in community colleges, if you're teaching at a community college, you don't have a lot of anthro majors. Some people are using it as, just a requirement. And maybe they just want to take a dip in the course. They want to pass with a C. Is it fair for us to make those students feel lesser than those students who want A's? Maybe they're getting A's in their, aerospace engineering courses, but they just need to pass anthro. So in this case, you've got like someone who's just taking a dip in the class. They're going to pass. They can transfer. They can go work at NASA. They can do whatever they want, right? But they're just taking a dip. So here's basically, this is my expectations of you if you're just taking a dip in this class. If you're going a little deeper, you're maybe a person who is interested in it, but you're not taking the deep dive, right? There's different expectations. And then, the students who are really into it and who, want to take the deep dive into the class, there's a different expectations there. So it's kind of a different way to think about grades, right? And that's a whole other thing, right? Grading. So the liquid syllabus that I showed you is that online syllabus. It's web-based, students can access it easily. If you send out a link, it can be a really welcoming introduction to your course and to you as a professor. So I've just taken screenshots of Fabiola Torres, who is someone who's on Twitter constantly talking about equity in the online environment, especially, and I would highly recommend following her. Her liquid syllabus comes right up on your phone. You can click any link and it'll take you to the syllabus. You can watch videos about anything that she's posted there. And again, this is done on Google Sites, which if you've already used Google for anything, it's just it's very easy. It like gives you a template and it says, what do you want to put here? What do you want to put there? So it's a very simple way to create a web-based syllabus that that students will see right away. What I do in my liquid syllabus, since I'm sending it out before the class starts, after being counseled by my children, I also have a survey in there, asking people about their challenges and give me one word to describe how you're feeling about the start of the semester. Do you have alternate pronouns? What do you want me to call you? It's just a bunch of things that let them know that, I really feel it's important to me that they feel welcomed to my class and that I know some things about them so that I can, do that in a way that is effective, right? That welcomes them effectively.
All right, is that a Google form that you have embedded in there?
This one?
No, I mean in your own. I mean the survey that you talked about. Is that a Google
in the survey is yes, it's a Google form. Yeah. Yep. My friend and colleague Denise Meduli Williams, who's also an equity champion, gave me this quote which makes so much sense. When a flower doesn't bloom, you fix the environment in which it grows, not the flower, right? You change the soil, you move it into the sun. It's not the flower's fault. So we have to create that environment in which all students can thrive. All right, so here are some more questions that we can talk about a little bit. Identify the reasons for your policies. So sometimes, as Carlene was mentioning, we have these policies, and we need to let students know that, if they don't meet XYZ, then there will be these consequences, right? I felt very strongly about late work, and for almost all of my teaching career, and I just had a blanket, no late work. And then it was no late work unless you came and talked to me, right? No late work unless you let me know. Who are the students that are going to come talk to you? Who are the students that are going to let you know? They're the students that are already prepared, the students that have low anxiety, right? These are the students that already have the apple tree leaning towards them. It's less likely that your students who are high anxiety, who don't feel like they belong in this academic environment, who are intimidated, who don't understand, what are office hours? I don't know what that is. Does that mean that, you are in an office? Like, do we do something about the office? Is there something like forms? So then I thought, wow, so I'm still not really being equitable with that practice. And I had a lot of conversations about it. And one of the things I kept coming back to was, people would say, well, it's about time management. You're trying to teach your students about time management. And once we start looking at our students are masters of time management. My students, especially in a community college, I don't want to speak for everyone, but my students, and I'm sure your students are similar to mine, they are working at least a job, maybe two. They are taking care of siblings, grandparents, extended family members. They are dealing with COVID and the pandemic. They are, doing whatever else they need. They're hustling. Your students are hustling, and they know about time management. It's that sometimes they have to choose between taking grandma to the doctor and getting something in on time. So now I don't have any late policy. I have a best by date, like milk. So I say, in order to succeed in this class, you need to get all your work done. It's to your benefit if you get your work done by this date, because we build on it. But it's a best by date, right? And students do not take advantage of that. I do not find students taking advantage of that. I see a few people turning things in, maybe a week late, right? Maybe up to a couple weeks, depending. Mostly they have so much anxiety about turning things in late, even after I've told them 5 times, there are no late penalties in this class. They send me long emails at 2 a.m. saying, right, Jen? Saying like, I'm so sorry, I will accept whatever punishment. I mean, I don't want to be that person, right? I don't want to give them that kind of trauma. Like, that trauma is inside them. They already have it, right? So for me, that really changed even how I thought about my class and how I thought about my students. And I could be fully supportive instead of supportive to a point and then be an arbiter, which personally, like, I didn't want to do that anymore, and we all have to decide, what do we feel good about? What do we feel like, where's this line for us? And it shifts, right? But for me, I just decided to give it up. Does anyone want to share on that? See, there's a lot going on in the chat.
I was just going to say that I've found exactly the same thing, especially since COVID started. I've just been like, we need to get things in by the end of the semester. There's a deadline for grading. if we hit that deadline, then we can have a one-on-one conversation, but just have it in, we can make it through this. And I still get those long emails, you know, all of the quote unquote sob stories, which are legitimate. And I'm like, no, it's okay. I'm here to help you. But I think what you were saying about academic trauma is very real for a lot of these students. And so they feel that they have to explain that and justify it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ian.
Laura, could you
yes.
say a little bit more about how you explain that Best Buy date?
Sure.
Because what I do, or what I've tried at least, you know, I have it's due on this day, but then you can turn it in late. You just it loses points, you know, as we move along, and so it becomes at some point it's not good anymore. And
which is maybe a better metaphor for milk, because it's true after about a week,
spoiling over time.
It spoils, right?
And the idea is that, you know, like you said, like it's in your best interest to turn it in now, because this is when we're discussing these ideas, and you know, you're going to be more able to learn from your classmates if you can have that conversation at that time. And so, you know, I still get, you know, those students who, you know, kind of want to turn everything in, you know, the last 2 weeks of class. And it's like, you've kind of missed all of the learning that the assignments were meant to help you do. So I'm just curious how you convey that idea of Best Buy.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that it's been a really long time since I've had any students that turn everything in at the end. And I don't know why that is. I do notice when students aren't turning things in, and I write them a note and say, hey, you know, I noticed you haven't been turning things in. Can I help you in any way? Right? Like, is there something that you need? Some resource I can give you, or, you know, what's going on? I don't even ask what's going on. I just say, can I help you? It's none of my business what's going on. And so maybe that helps a little bit in mitigating that, like, you know, that the push at the end of the semester. But I literally just write it in the syllabus, and I write it in I have like a syllabus quiz for like an extra credit point, you know, find the answers to this in the syllabus. And it's, you know, I just say, you know, when can you turn in work in this class? You know, there's a Best Buy date, which basically just means that, you know, this is when it's to your benefit to get this work in. But there are no late penalties. Students want deadlines. I mean, I think, you know, just like kids want to be, you know, they want limitations sometimes, or they want consistency, right? I think students want deadlines because they're managing so many things. It helps them to know what those deadlines are. But then if something comes up and they have to miss it, then they're not gonna not pass. Right. And like, I totally get if people have different ideas about this. It took me like 20 years to get to this point where I finally like let it go. This question, what would happen if your course allowed late work? Would more students succeed? I was just like, yeah. You know, so that for me became the most important thing is, you know, I'm not dumbing it down. I'm not letting them turn in. I mean, I'm still grading it the same. So my expectations don't change, whether they turn it in, you know, now or in 2 weeks. But I think that's that's a personal thing that like everybody has to come to. Jen, did you want to say something about that?
I was just going to add a completely anecdotal story about a student that that did turn in everything in the last couple weeks of the quarter in fall of this year. And I've always had a very lenient late policy, and after COVID, I got rid of late penalties altogether because we're all dealing with stuff, and I didn't see the point. And I made that very clear to my students. This particular student had family members with COVID. She had lost her job. She was going through a ton of stuff. So she was a student who had previously been a 4-point student. She was really struggling in the first couple weeks of the quarter. She disappeared. I didn't hear from her. I reached out a couple times. She was able to, and this wouldn't work for everybody, but she was very bright, very focused. She was able to come in and salvage what was a horrible quarter for her in the last couple weeks, because she had the opportunity to engage with the work and still get it done. And the work that she turned in was fantastic. She was really doing it. So I think that just recognizing that, especially now, we all need grace, and that there are ways for people to be successful is important.
Thanks, Jen. So we are almost out of time, but I just wanted to get through these other questions. This is a very similar image to the tree image. And this question or point talks about creating a classroom space in which all students feel welcomed, included, and respected. And then there's a link here that I would recommend that you look at for the Center for Research on Teaching and Learning and Teaching at the University of Michigan, about how the content offered through your syllabus can include or exclude students. And then this is another really great resource from @1 CVC OEI, and this is a very long weird thing, but @1, if you haven't seen them already, it's a terrific resource for online teaching and learning, with lots of great people and great videos on equity and humanizing your courses. So one of the things that I did was I changed the term office hours to rebrand them as student visiting hours, because that's what they are, right? As students are going to come visit. So we call them student visiting hours, a couple friends and I. And I think it's a lot clearer. So think about, as anthropologists, right, like what in our syllabus is part of our subculture of academia, and how can we step outside of that and say, like, oh, what's the lingo that only the insiders know, that maybe our students wouldn't know, and try to work with that. So I feel like we could talk for maybe 3 more hours, but unfortunately, this is the end of my session, and I hate to go long on anything. So I wanted to thank you so much for coming. Please look through the rest of the resource. Let me know if you have any questions. My email is on here. I love to talk about this stuff, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks,
Thank you
Laura.
very much. Yeah, that's great. Very helpful.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Laura.
you. Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. So many good
Thank you so
ideas.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm so glad.
it's really helpful in terms of framing activities and putting it in these terms that are valuable to the students and also valuable to our own fellow colleagues.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
means a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. See y'all later.